Alrighty, I think we are good to go. Thank you, everyone. Howdy and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for EarthEcho's Solving Water Together, Careers in the Water Street panel. My name is Armon Alex. I am an EarthEcho Youth Leadership Council member and also an undergraduate student at Xylem University of Corpus Christi. And I'm really so truly thrilled to be here with you all today to discover and enlighten our minds a little bit about the world of careers in the water industry. Now, EarthEcho International is a nonprofit environmental organization founded on the belief that youth have the power to change our planet. Our programs and resources have reached more than 2 million people in over 146 countries and even touched the minds of many young ocean stewards just like myself. I'm most excited about this week where we are celebrating World Water Monitoring Day. We believe that everyone can and should participate in the protection of their water resources. Today, we are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn about exciting and sustainable careers in the water industry. Now, as always, during today's event, you can send in questions for our panel. So feel free to start typing questions in the Q&A on Zoom or in the comment section on YouTube if you're tuning in there. We'll be sure to answer as many questions as we can as we go along today's presentation. And of course, we definitely want to thank our event sponsors, Xylem Watermark and Water Environment Federation. Now, without further ado, let's dive in by introducing our incredible panel. Let's start with Benet Akian, product engineer for filtration and clarification at Xylem. Benet, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're joining us from?
Hi everyone, this is Benai. I'm an environmental engineer and I'm currently a product engineer at Xylem. I'm joining from Pennsylvania.
Wonderful, nice and wonderful to have you, Benet. Next, we'd like to introduce Jens Schneiderler, a manager of commercialization at Xylem. Jens, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and where are you joining us from today?
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name is Jens and I'm joining from Germany. And so my background is chemical engineering, and at Xylem I'm responsible for the commercialization of new disruptive water treatment technologies.
Fantastic. And of course, last but not least, Tori, can you tell us a little bit what you do? Education Outreach Coordinator.
My name is Tori Epperson, and I'm joining you from the District of Columbia, where I'm employed with the District of Columbia Water and Sewer Company, or DC Water. And as Education Outreach Coordinator, it's my job to ensure that the community and students here in the district are aware of our purpose and function as a water utility. And then I also educate them on how they can do their part in order to protect our waterways and our environment.
That sounds very exciting, honestly. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and dive in and look at some of these questions that we have. This first one we have coming up is for Jens and Tori. What paths have led you to be where you are today in your career? And we can start off with Tori, if you'd like to take that one.
Sure. So my path has definitely not been a straight line. It's been quite a winding path. I studied psychology in undergrad, and then at some point I worked in a number of industries before I became a STEM teacher, middle school science. I really enjoyed that, but I have a need to move around and do exciting things, and field trips were good, but I really wanted to take it more out into the real world. And so when this opportunity came to light at DC Water, I now not only am able to touch thousands of students per year, but also I get to do cool things like go down into tunnels and look into the sewer. So it took me a while to get here through a lot of different avenues, but I was able to get into something that combines all of my interests.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Yeah, I love, sorry about that, Jens. I was just going to briefly say that a lot of the times it's not such a straightforward path. And I can definitely testify to that, just being an undergrad student, and, you know, how many times I've had to change my major because of a passion that I've had for. So thank you so much for testifying to that. And Jens, please take it away.
Yeah, so my way is a little bit different. So actually my first job after the education was at Xylem 18 years ago. So I studied chemical engineering, and I started in research and development in the lab doing water quality testing and feasibility studies. And at that time, I literally got exposed to every wastewater you can imagine. Nasty ones, nice ones, yellow ones, brown ones, you name it. And over the time, I started to develop new treatment processes based on advanced oxidation. And then I was fortunate enough to really get into this role, commercializing these new technologies, bring them to the market, and then really see technology transform from a small beaker test thing into large water treatment plants that you can now see. So that's literally my path I took.
Thank you, Jens. And I have a quick question for you because you had mentioned wastewater. A question from Miss Van Dam's class in Michigan. They're wondering, is making water, filtering water out of sewer water a good thing? And how do we know if it won't affect us? Would you be able to kind of answer that briefly?
Yeah, because that's one of my passions. So actually, I was responsible for water reuse within Xylem, and we actually brewed beer out of wastewater. So technology is there, you just need to use it. So you can clean sewer wastewater, the most nasty one, into very precious drinking water. So the technology is there. And now our goal is to make this technology more energy efficient, so that also this conversion is not producing other not so wanted side effects like CO2 emissions, for example. But technology is there. And I've drunk a lot of reuse water already. And I can tell you it's healthy as fresh spring water from the mountains. So there's no difference.
That's amazing. I'm not quite sure what answer I was expecting, but filtrating it into beer is just certainly one of those out of the box kind of imagination ones. That's fascinating. Thank you so much for answering that, Jens. And let's go ahead and take a look at this next question that we have. It is, how does your work contribute to a sustainable future? We can pass this over to Benai, if you don't mind answering this one.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so I think one of the advantages that nowadays that we're having with the advanced technology and science is always getting better. We're learning more and more about the pollutants every day in our water, and so and with this knowledge, then the treatment, the cleaning also has to catch up to this. So we are always then trying to decrease the amount of pollutions that's going into our waterways more and more. And I think what we're doing, working as in a treatment technology company, always challenges us to try to reach all these treatment limits that we can do best in terms of decreasing these pollutions as to lower concentrations as possible. So I think this is one of the ways that we are contributing to sustainability, to the future of the environment, doing what we do in terms of environmental engineers, chemical engineers in the water industry.
Thank you so much, Benai. Let's see. We can go ahead and shift gears over and looking at this next one we have coming up. And if Tori, if you don't mind answering this one, it's what is one of the biggest challenges in your field at the moment as an education outreach coordinator? What are some challenges that you're facing?
Well, not necessarily as an outreach coordinator, but as a member of the water industry. One of our biggest problems, youth, is that the workforce is aging. So our local water utilities in particular, so here at DC Water, we not only distribute the drinking water to the citizens and visitors of DC, but we also treat their wastewater. We have so many people, whether they're in skilled jobs or in some of these back-end jobs that are near retirement, and we don't have people to replace them or to learn from them or to give us some technologies and innovations that are out of the box, because we're having a lot of issues in terms of infrastructure. We're having a lot of issues in terms of pollution that we really, really need young minds, innovative minds in the industry to give us some really quick solutions, because we're really running out of time to solve a lot of these issues.
Thank you, Tori. And I kind of have a personal one for you is how do you as a education coordinator with the DC Water kind of fill that gap where you, like you mentioned, there's a youth problem where you've got typically older people in that industry. How are you filling that gap and, outreaching to the youth to get interested in these kind of jobs?
Well, I'm exposing them in as many ways as possible from as young of an age as possible. So I'm working with students all the way in pre-K 3 up until high school seniors, and then some who are 18 to 24, they are just leaving high school and are looking to do something in that gap or with their skills. So it goes from teaching classroom lessons to expose students to not only the fact that there are civil engineers, but there are so many different types underneath that umbrella. Also letting students know that we need people to help us pay for these sorts of things. So we need finance people. So there's so many different STEM careers that I expose students to. I give them tours of our really cool LEED Platinum headquarters to let them know that, working at the local water company is not as like old and boring as you might want to think it is. So yeah, I just do as much work as possible to get students some really hands-on exposure to what the industry really is.
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. I think that is really, honestly, truly the way for a lot of organizations to kind of navigate and kind of present this information to the youth, is that there are so many opportunities out there in the water industry, in the STEM fields. There are so many loads of careers, and truly everything is connected. But we need those, those young minds to, push innovation forward. And this is, a good kind of segue into this next question that we have. If Benai and Jens, if you don't mind answering, what innovation in your career or your field, what innovation in your field are you most excited about right now? And actually, I would love to offer this to all three of you, if you don't mind.
So
Benai,
who starts first?
Yeah, go ahead, Benai.
Okay, let's start first. So one of the things that excites me a lot currently going on in water industry is treatment solutions for PFAS compounds. So PFAS has been very challenging for us in order to treat, because most of the solutions currently based on some adsorption technologies, where then you will end up with a concentrated pollutant basically at the end. And science is currently looking into some destructive technologies where actually you can destroy these compounds, not just concentrate and therefore have to dispose in other ways. So I think the innovations that's going on in that path, to me, is very exciting and also very necessary in my opinion. So that's one of my, and also I'm working on it relatively closely. So I'm very excited about those innovations going on.
Thank you, Benai. That actually sounds pretty interesting. I'll definitely have to follow up you after this to kind of see a little bit more about that. Tori or Jens, would you like to answer this one as well? Innovations in your field that you're excited about.
Yeah, so one of the innovations I'm pretty much excited about is all the things that we are currently doing and developing to make wastewater treatment more available and affordable, also in what we call the emerging markets, so developing countries, because all these nice sophisticated technologies that we have in our developed countries are too expensive, too sophisticated to be implemented. But there are now new technologies coming up that are more simple, that are more robust, that are more affordable, use less energy. And I think that's really one of the innovations that I'm excited about, is really to bring water treatment to all the people. So not to the fortunate ones, but also to the ones that are really in the need, because most of the wastewater in those countries is not treated at all. And by this causes a lot of harm. So that's the innovations I'm most excited about.
Oh, I love that too. And, I think it's really interesting because I've had to kind of look at this a little bit, where in some of these regions, they kind of do already have some sort of solution. Do you, in your work, kind of have to go and look at these solutions and maybe brainstorm off of that a little bit?
Yes, exactly. So actually the product or the solution that I'm working on currently is exactly for those markets. So making it more easy, more compact, so that you even now it's affordable to provide wastewater treatment to maybe a small village. So more what we call decentralized treatment is way more effective and way more affordable than large centralized wastewater treatment plants that need a lot of piping and pumping. And so that's exactly what I'm looking in at the moment. So to provide what we call packaged, decentralized wastewater treatment plants that may fit in a sea freight container, for example, for a village of 2,000 people.
Everyone definitely deserves to have some fresh, clean water, don't you think?
Yeah.
Alrighty, Tori. What innovations are you excited about in this water industry?
Well, there are so many amazing technologies in the field. I actually think that at DC Water, we may have, we had a partnership with Xylem to do, I think, smart water pumps as well. So it's really cool to know that now I'm able to see some of the faces behind that type of technology. But the thing that I'm most excited about is, I think, innovation in ideas. More and more people in our industry and more companies, as you said, are thinking outside of the box in order to reach people, the people who are using the water, especially those of us who are in more fortunate and developed situations. Some of those chemicals, well, all of those chemicals wouldn't be there, and all of the pollution that we're seeing wouldn't be there if we weren't putting it there. And so I think that there is also a lot of work with educating the public, not only about what new things we're coming up to solve the problem, but really taking a deep dive and being specific about what they can do to be a solution. So I think that I'm really loving to see that more and more utilities, more and more companies are doing more extensive outreach with the people who are consuming the water.
Yes, I completely agree with that 100%. That's kind of one of the reasons why I was so inspired and passionate to go into my career of science communications, to really fill in that gap between the research and all of this amazing innovation work that are being done on a professional scientific level. But if we're not able to connect those ideas with the public, then we're not going to be able to do, true change and have true actions to better our planet. So I completely agree with that. And of course, we have to get more of that young mind and youth in there as well, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Alrighty, let's see. This next one, if Benai and Jens, you don't mind answering this one, it's what are some common misconceptions people have about the water industry? And I know Tori kind of lightly touched up on this earlier, but what do you guys think? What are some common misconceptions?
Jens, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I can. So maybe just referring also to myself. So when I was younger, maybe I just thought, okay, it's like dealing with the dirty thing, the dirty side of the business, and you just see, okay, that's wastewater, that's drinking water. So what can you really do in this industry? And I think people don't really see all this science that is behind water treatment, because it's hidden. You can't see it from the outside. It's maybe done by bacteria. So things happen, you don't really recognize this. And what I learned is that the water industry really gives you the opportunity to engage in so many different ways. All natural science are important. Mathematics now for all these data analysis that are now done, all these digital things, chemistry, physics, you name it, biology. And I think that's what people, don't really see at the first sight, that what happens inside the water, what happens in these brown, dirty tanks you can see on the wastewater treatment plant. And honestly, I haven't seen this too, but now I think I have a good insight.
Oh, thank you, Jens. I think it's pretty interesting. I think a lot of young minds, a lot of people that don't know too much about the water industry, like you said, just have that common misconceptions that it's, dealing with dirty water. But if you don't mind answering this one from our audience members, they are wondering a question from Savannah at Davie County High School. She wants to know, like, for instance, what are some examples of careers in the water industry that you can think of, Jens?
Yeah, so as I said, it's so much. So from principal science, so you can work as a researcher. So a lot of folks work as researchers really on the principles, the fundamentals. Binay mentioned PFAS. I think 20 years ago, we even didn't know that it's inside the water because we simply couldn't detect it. So that's a playground by itself, is these analysis, these chemistry and principles. So you could be a researcher in a university working on those things, but you could also be the guy that has the task to develop a treatment solution based on biology. So maybe you modify bacteria so that they can eat up the PFAS. So it's almost like it's unlimited opportunities. You can work as a mechanic and do, if you like to work with your hands, you can simply do some craftsmanship in the water industry as well. So it's really unlimited, to be frank.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think, the simplest answer that it is unlimited, and it's nice if we can tap in to that potential of, different careers for young minds to look at in the water industry. And back to the original question for Vinay, what are some common misconceptions that you think that the water industry has?
Yeah, so actually I have two in mind. And one of them we already kind of covered a little bit around reuse of water. It's still, I think, a challenge for people to kind of appreciate how how good we can treat the water, really. So especially in terms of, for instance, direct potable reuse, where you take the effluent from a secondary a wastewater treatment plant, and then you put it into some further treatment, some advanced treatment, and then have a basically very purified water at the end. And you can directly easily consume that water without putting it again on a water body in a natural environment. So I think this is something that we need to kind of overcome in our minds in terms of our perception. And also, I believe regulatory agencies also need to kind of work a little bit on that to bring this a little bit more up to speed and educate people a little bit more on these topics. The second one that I had in mind is that, and I'm still hearing that this is as a concern, for instance, using biological processes in drinking water treatment. It has been, I believe, in the US seen as if it's not a good practice, but for instance, it has been proved a lot, and nowadays it is much better. But in Europe, this type of technology has been used for many years, and it's actually, in fact, much more effective to remove some additional pollutants as well from water. So and you always have at your drinking water treatment system, you have disinfection at the end of your plant anyway, so there are really no concerns regarding any type of biological contamination or anything in your drinking water. So I think it needs to be a little bit more or better communicated to public, so that they will also appreciate these improvements in the water treatment area. So these are, to me, two main misconceptions.
Yeah, I definitely believe you would also be able to agree that the water industry does, it would be better off if there was more diversity and just a bigger inclusion of perspectives, and of course, we can get that youth kind of mind going in there. I'm sure the innovations could go skyrocket, to be honest. All right, let's take a look. And if Jens and Benai, if you don't mind tackling this next question, it's are there any hardships you've had to come over, and how did you come over those hardships? Feel free to be as specific or personal as you'd like. Jens, would you like to go first?
I really have to think about this question now.
No worries. All righty, we can pass it over to Tori. Would you like to kind of address this a little bit?
Sure. I think you touching on diversity is a really important point. There's various types of diversity that I didn't see initially, and I'm starting to see a little bit now that sometimes makes you run into challenges because it's a little bit harder to relate, or you bring a different perspective in that people aren't used to. So that could be because you're a younger person entering this aging workforce that I talked about. It could be that I'm a woman in a male-dominated industry, not dominated, but a predominantly male industry. It can be that I'm a non-science person and working on water issues. So I think that even having on the engineering and scientific and technical side versus those of us who are working more in communications and some of those other things, we don't always see eye to eye on the best way to solve problems. So I definitely think coming together around the table and bringing all of these different areas of expertise and all of these different sides of the brain being used and thinking about it from different socioeconomic perspectives, all of those types of things have given small challenges that I've had to overcome throughout my time in the industry.
Oh, thank you so much, Tori, for being able to speak on that. And, you know, for having to go through these kind of hardships of, looking at diversity, looking at inclusion, how do you personally overcome those issues? How do you, push forward in the light of that?
Well, that I think follows that general advice that you've got to be confident in yourself, confident in your ideas, know that you're at those tables and in those rooms and a part of those conversations for a reason. And I stay persistent and I listen. So I listen to the wisdom of some of the people who have different perspectives than me. I compromise and I also tailor my message to my audience. So I always kind of know who I'm dealing with and make sure that if I'm dealing with my science people, I've got concrete, hard evidence, I've got numbers, I've got factual information, I've got maps. If I'm, it just depends on who I'm working with. So I think learning all of those different things has really helped me to kind of overcome adversity. And I just don't, you don't have to take everything personal either. So sometimes it's not because of those reasons. So I think that just really learning to pick and choose what you're going to take in and what you're not, and also when you're going to stick to your guns and really be courageous and challenge the status quo in the industry.
Thank you, Tori. Confidence, persistence, and compromise. And I think something that I definitely talk about during my science communication presentations with the youth is that this idea of being able to keep an open mind, that every conversation that you go into, you have to go into it thinking that you have something to learn. And that's how we better facilitate these dynamic conversations. And that's how we collaborate, because if we're all, shouting out opinions in a room, that's all we're doing and we're not collaborating with each other. So thank you for touching on that just a little bit. And Jens, sir, do you think you'll be able to answer this a little bit more?
Yeah, so with regards to the hardships, so I thought about it. Of course, in my role, there are many hardships you have to overcome, but I think what's really evident in the water industry, what I see is really the lack of capital and the reluctance to really invest into water infrastructure. So you may find you're in a spot where you have the greatest technology that would solve a lot of issues, and it's better for the people, but there's no capital that is available to be spent on these. So that's what we always see in the public domain with governments. Where do you save the money? Where do you spend it? Especially now in developing countries as well. So they also have to set their priorities. And sometimes there's not enough money to fund the next wastewater treatment plant. So that's definitely a hardship that we see. How to overcome this? Difficult sometimes, but of course we as a company, we look into ways to get equipment installed to get these projects off the ground by helping to bring in, for example, alternative financing models, for example. So that's something that I see frequently in our industry, is really the lack of capital, which you sometimes wonder if you know how much capital is flying around at the moment. So, but that's one of the hardships that I see.
Yeah, it is. It's so strange to me to think that water is such an essential to all life, all walks of life. And there's not yet enough investment. But I will say, though, that there are tons of innovations and solutions that are out there. And I think what is kind of like this firewall that blocks a lot of these solutions from getting out there is money, and who's advocating for it as well. Would you agree with that a little bit, Jens?
Absolutely, and there must be a driver. So perfect example, no drought, there won't be any investment into water reuse. There is a drought, people see that their lawn is turning brown, water tariffs increase, then you get public perception, pressure on the politicians to invest. Even in Germany now, so we are a water-rich country, but we also have a drought. And now all these newspapers are now having headlines like, hey, we should do better water management. You'll see there must be a driver for the politicians to really say, okay, now I have to, otherwise I won't get elected again. So that's sad because we know it's gonna happen, but that's human nature. There must be pressure from the environment, so to say, before we start really to invest.
Thank you for touching up on that and kind of expanding on that a little bit more. You're absolutely correct. And I do want to give a couple of moments over to our audience. They've had a couple of questions coming in, and let me see if I can kind of look through here to see if we can grab one. And I can direct this towards Benai and Tori. If you guys don't mind answering this one, a question from Casey on our YouTube channel. She wants to know, what are some actions that we can take at home to help with, water crises?
Just quickly thinking, the first thing that came into my mind is that I think it's really important to try to decrease our water consumption as much as possible. Just because we are living, in a place, we are very lucky that we have running water in our taps, but doesn't mean that a lot of people really get to do it, and the energy, the effort that's getting into treating all this water, and the pollutants that we're producing is just adding more and more stress to the environment. So even closing the tap a little bit when maybe we're washing our hands, it doesn't have to flush over in order for us to wash our hands. I think that's just a simple thing, but it is also an easy, very easy thing to do. And that's one of the recommendations that I can make. I actually try to pay attention to it very much myself. So that's.
Thank you so much, Benai. And Tori, what do you think? How, I know you as an education coordinator, I'm sure you've got some ideas already flowing through your head there, but what are some ways that people can, help out with this water crisis at home? What are some methods, some ideas?
Well, I definitely echo Benai's sentiments about ensuring that we're employing those ideas that everyone knows about, making sure that you're conserving water. But bigger than that, when you're at a friend's house, or you're at your aunt's house, or you're at your grandparents' house, and they're not doing some of these things, challenge them in a respectful way, but educate your friends. And I would also say engage with your local water company. I'm not sure where you are, but you can look all around you, and every jurisdiction has their own unique issues. Find out what the source of your water is. What river does it come from? Do you live close to that river? You can go right over there and do a little cleanup, or you can organize a campaign between yourself and your friends. So definitely that knowledge piece will be your power, with stepping a little bit beyond turning off the tap and doing some of those things to really see what you can do. Maybe your whole neighborhood can ask for permeable pavement. So there's lots of things that you can do to kind of band together and really make an even larger impact, but you're still kind of on your block and around home.
And kind of to expand on this just a little bit more, Tori, and I can take this exactly from, the way that it's written here from a question that one of our James has mentioned on Zoom Q&A. It has been said, he puts it just like this, it has been said that because of 21st century and fourth industrial revolution, we need to prepare for jobs that don't even exist at this moment. And whether they're inspired from, small things that we do at home, going out and looking at our rivers, just like you mentioned, we have to prepare for these jobs that don't exist at this time. From your perspective, what are some potential jobs that you can see coming online in the coming 5 to 10 years?
For me, I think that as we look into a lot more green solutions for these things, so instead of having technology, we also need a lot of plants, a lot of native plants and things like that. So I definitely see like something like a wastewater biologist or something. Like we've got people, I think, that are in architecture majors that are working on some of these issues, but I would love to see it from a biological perspective. And this could be a job that one person somewhere has already. I definitely think that maybe doctors or people in the medical research field focusing on some of these wastewater options might move in, water or wastewater issues may move into working a lot more closely with our industry in terms of seeing what they can do for public health. But there's already such a wide range of things that are out there. Sometimes you may be called an engineer, but you're split between 3 different departments working on a hybrid solution for something. So literally the sky is the limit. So as you're doing your research, if you're an undergrad and there's no major that fits what you think you want to do to solve this problem, you can create it. As long as you can come with justification, most schools will allow you to create your own path to graduation. So literally it's anything you want. However you think we can best solve these issues, you can combine any amount of careers and make something special for you.
Yes, that is an amazing answer to that kind of question. The sky is the limits. And I'm so glad that you had touched on the fact that there are already so many careers in the water industry. But of course, looking into the future, it's a little bit harder to kind of predict what's going to be out there. But of course, always, if you get involved now, you could potentially be the pioneer for that next career within the water industry. And whether you're in college or you're just a high schooler or an elementary and middle school and you're tuning in, you've got so much, what's the word, energy. You've got so many ideas in your mind that you could potentially be the driver for the water industry in the future. And every region has to kind of have its own kind of solution, but and this is perfect because I just found a question here from Raiden Hertz on Zoom, and I can direct this over to Jens. Do you know if different regions require different forms of water treatment? Is that something that you're able to respond to, Jens?
Yeah, so in general, science is everywhere exactly the same. So in general, water treatment is usually everywhere the same, but depending on the source of water. So Tori touched on this. Might it be a river? Might it be a groundwater source? It will differ. So that, for example, I live in an area where we don't have any treatment. So the water is just pumped from the ground. It's distributed. There's no chlorine addition. Whereas in other countries, you really have to have like 4 different treatment steps that you can convert river water into drinking water. So it's not really like regions. It's really very granular what is required. But the overall treatment trains and the science is independent from the location.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's see. And let's go ahead and shift gears, moving over to the last question that we have for today. And that question on our presentation is, what advice, and this is for all of you, we can go, Tori, or Benet, you definitely can take this one first, but what advice would you give to students right now?
So I think, and it is general, whichever career that you want to pursue. I think one of the most important things is to be resilient for the the hardships that you may see throughout your way. It is most of the time things never really come easy, and And I know that nowadays everything became a little bit harder than it even used to be before with the COVID, and you know, people cannot even go to schools to you know, face to face with the teachers. So it's a lot of things are very hard right now nowadays. But I think just to, you know, keep the positive attitude and try to do your best as you can, and I'm sure that will be enough. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you so much, Vinay. Jens, do you have any advice for students?
Yeah, so my personal advice would be to really build a sound foundation of your skills and your knowledge. So either be it engineering or science or whatever, because as the water industry has so many opportunities, if the foundation is there, you can do everything. So I started as a chemical lab assistant. Now I do nothing that is related to chemistry at the moment. So if the foundation is right, you can go everywhere. So I think that would be my advice.
While I have you here, Jens, there's a question from Joe Goldman, and she was wondering, how can we hold, you know, larger corporations? And I think this is maybe something that you might be able to answer. How can we hold large corporations and nations accountable for their water usage and the pollutants that they produce?
Yeah. So that's a very good question, and it's also, of course, very different from region to region. So in Europe, for example, we have the REACH program that is regulating the distribution of chemicals in general. So it's tracked where chemicals are produced and where they are dumped. On the other hand, and most important, I think, is pressure from the outside, mean regulations, stringent discharge criteria. That's very important. That's how Europe was able to clean up most of the rivers. You have to put pressure on it. On the other hand, what I see, large corporations don't need this pressure. They do it by themselves. So a lot of large corporations have very stringent regulations for their discharge that is way more stringent than what the government is asking for. So I can name some that have very strong sustainability programs that say we want to reach net zero discharge, which is very ambitious, and of course way more than a government would ask for. But I think we as consumers, of course, we can look which products we buy. Is it a company that is sustainable operating, that has a net zero discharge ambition, for example? But on the other hand, I think it's really also to make sure there is pressure from the public, from us, from the young people that challenge their local mayors, for example. So we have, for example, in my hometown, there is a youth council that put pressure on the mayor to think about environmental things beside economical things, for example. So I think that's what we can do. And regulations, I think, is the key to keep pollution down. That's most important.
Thank you, Jens, and that goes right hand in hand with, you know, just not being afraid to use your voice, especially as, you know, even for myself as a member of this next generation. Sometimes we tend to forget how powerful our voice is, but if we can use it and if we can speak, and all it takes is us for open up our mouths, and if that's to call out a corporation for pollution, let's go ahead and do it. Design a campaign, go ahead and do it, because once you get started, the next step, all you got to do is take it step by step, and you're already moving forward inch by inch. And my mom always said, a closed mouth never gets fed. So if your mouth is closed and you've got all the ideas in your head that, you know, this is a problem, but you're not speaking on it, nothing will get done. But let's go ahead and, you know, for this last question, we'll go ahead and hand it off to Tori. Do you have any advice, any more advice, any wonderful advice for people in my generation and any more students?
My advice would be explore your interests. So I think that there are some of you who are watching who have always known what you want to do, you're doing what you want to do, and you're going to do what you want to do. And then there may be others who are watching this who have no clue what you want to do, and you've never had a clue what you want to do. That's okay. Either way is perfectly fine. But don't feel like you're locked into any decisions that you make now. I think Jens brought up an amazing point about, as long as you are strong of foundation, you can move and be and do so many different things that branch off from wherever you started. So, you know, if you wanted to go to law school, but you love to work in the environment and be in nature, there's environmental law. So you have so many different options and avenues. Just don't limit yourself.
Thank you so very much, Tori, for being able to offer some advice. And once again, we would definitely like to thank our event sponsors. We're specifically talking about Xylem Watermark and the Water Environment Federation, as well as all of our amazing panelists for joining us. Our partners at Xylem, this is really exciting, by the way. Our partners at Xylem are hosting a hackathon to solve water. This is going to be between September 24th and the 27th at 2020. So this is looking at featuring webinars, there's will be prizes, mentorship, and so much more being presented there. This is looking at high school students, and they can definitely register now through September 22nd. I think we'll have somebody drop the link to that in the chat and the Zoom Q&A, even in the YouTube chat comment section. But if you are able to see this on your screen, feel free to go onto your camera and scan that QR code. Once again, this is for the Hackathon to Solve Water, September 24th to 27th, webinars, prizes, mentorship, and much, much more. And then also we hope that you continue to celebrate World Water Monitoring Day this week. EarthEcho has so many different things. Please definitely check it out. But like I said, we hope that you continue to celebrate World Water Monitoring Day this week and all year long. So stay tuned to all of EarthEcho's channels. And to stay up to date on events throughout the year, you can access all of our free resources online. Again, I'll say you can access all of our free resources online. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are so many videos going up on a weekly basis. There are virtual events are all on there as well. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter at earthecho.org. And last but not least, on behalf of EarthEcho International and myself and the Youth Leadership Council and the Water Challenge Ambassadors for World Water Monitoring Day, we want to thank you so very much for tuning in today. Thank you to our panelists and everybody that was able to help out. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and keep exploring. Bye-bye, everyone.